I don't think we need to introduce the presenters. They're both board members of the society and both actively engaged in a digitalization process. So who's going to start off?
Good evening and welcome. My name is Lindars, and I'd like to thank you all for coming tonight to hear a little bit more about the Nevada County Archive. So, can I ask first, before we get into this, how many of you have already looked at the archive online? Okay, I think we're done. Thank you so much for checking it out. That's awesome. So for those of you who don't know really about what this is about, so it's a regional digital repository for all of the things that we have on the basic digital assets that we have online to celebrate and preserve our history. And so, you know, what's often thought about both from a museum and the amazing work that happens at Searles Library and Doris Foley Library, etc., is you think about preserving our history, preserving our documents, preserving our records, preserving photos, maps, everything. So there is an additional problem. When you actually digitize something, you actually then have to preserve that digital copy. And actually a perfect example of that is that something that you're going to see a little bit later on is that we recently acquired a large collection of old videos and films. And there's a perfect example of digital preservation. The film was digitized onto a tape, but now how do we get it off the tape that is 30 years old? And so digital preservation is actually making sure that something's always available in the future. So 100 years from now, we can actually access the same thing. So what the archive here is, it's a collaboration starting out between the Searles Historical Library and the Doris Foley Library. But more recently, it's expanded to be quite a lot bigger. And in fact, we've been now working with our different partners, two groups up in Truckee, both the Truckee Donner Historical Society and also the Donner Summit Historical Society have provided us thousands of photos and newsletters. Also working with the Grass Valley Museum and Cultural Center, with Nevada County Genealogical Society, wonderful contributions from the Historical Landmarks Commission. Recently we actually just loaded, I think, 2,000 or 3,000 photos from various different activities, events, and field trips, all thanks actually to Jerry Martini, thank you, the amazing photographer who actually provided all of those. And I know you're going to say, well, hang on, the Sierra County Historical Society, I see a problem there, Don. They're not actually part of Nevada County. So it turns out that actually, if you talk to folk who live in Downeyville, nearly half of them also have houses in Nevada City or Grass Valley. And so actually the community, and it's actually been that way for, I live down here as well. And in fact, I'd like to, where are you, Don? Did you disappear? There you are. Okay. I'd like to introduce, thank you, Don Costa, who's a representative here from, well, Downeyville and all things, but actually I have to say the amazing contribution that Don's been providing actually is Downeyville High School yearbooks. An amazing collection. So we have a really great number of high school yearbooks from here, but also now adding to that the Downeyville High School as well, which is really amazing. So, okay, so if you haven't taken a good look around the archive, there's a lot in there. And for some of this particularly, it can be a little overwhelming about looking in there to say, okay, well, what's actually inside? So in one place, you can search not just 460,000 images, pages, but also you can also search nearly 700,000 index records. And so these represent decades of work. The index records represent decades of work by Searles Library volunteers. So Pat and her team of volunteers have been doing data entry for a long time now. And exactly as Pat was mentioning about the Grass Valley assessment books, that's actually, so the Grass Valley assessment books is 100,000 records of those. And all of those are typed in by hand by volunteers over many years. And so part of what we're actually researching here is all of the indexes of things that are yet to be seen. We may get to scan them someday. It's, as you can see, it's a little bit. It may be a bit of a long project, but in the meantime, point is, as Pat always says very accurately, if it's not indexed, you're never going to find it. And that's the philosophy that we truly take to heart. So the archive now has a good number of photos, so about 46,000 photos, but also a fascinating collection of newspapers, local maps, records that we've scanned here. And actually, when I say 1,400 scanned records, I see actually amongst the crowd here a good number of our scanning volunteers. May I ask you just to stand, if you have been scanning as part of the volunteer team, can I ask you just to stand for a moment, just to say hello? And I have to say, Shelby and Hannah could have stood up, been shy. So thank you so much. You know, this Dakota and I feel this is such a team effort, and you know, we love what we do. We love have a passion for the history and the organizing of it, and we really appreciate your passion for digitizing and scanning this and helping to get it available for everybody. So let's just jump into a few different things in here. So about what's inside. So first of all, newspapers. And then this is a significant thing. We've got about 36,000 newspapers. It's about 170,000 pages. And it's from 22 different newspapers. And it represents 2/3 of all of the newspapers ever printed in the county. Now, it was kind of hard to put all these pieces together. So, but you know, the amazing thing now is that obviously you can go to places like newspapers.com or you know, other places, Library of Congress and the California Digital Newspaper Collection, also known as CDNC. But they only have a selection of newspapers, or it's only at particular time periods. And so particularly for here in the county, it's important to be able to actually search everything all in one place. And so that's part of the goal of the archive, is that rather than having to peck around lots of different sites, you know, going from website to website to try and find what you're looking for, hopefully the goal is here just to be able to find everything all in one place. And that's certainly what we're trying with newspapers. So a range of, going back to the earliest newspapers, so the Nevada Journal, first published in April 1851, was our first newspaper here. It was the second newspaper printed in basically the goldfields of the Sierras. So there was one other printing press somewhere up here. Obviously not worth mentioning because they were the first one. I do know that we were the second. Nevada City was the second printing press in the gold camps. But also, in addition, collections from various other places. And so just to give you an idea where they came from. So many of you may have seen the news earlier in the year that CDNC had all of its budget cut. There was a couple of weeks where it was pretty concerning. So via Laura Papani and I reached out to CDNC and the director, Brian Geiger, and said, hi, are you going to be around? Because we actually would like to see our newspapers. And Brian is just amazing. Literally, he shipped me a hard drive with 16,000 newspapers on it. So if anything ever happens to CDNC, fortunately we're okay because we actually have a copy of everything there. And then the other big chunk actually was thanks to the Doris Foley Library and through the Trust and Friends of the Library that helped support their digitization effort. And also some pieces from Library of Congress. So thank you as taxpayers for helping to pay for the Library of Congress. And also California Revealed to help support the digitization effort for the Truckee Dom Historical Society. So really, you know, a big thank you. This is where it's a big team effort, collaborating with these different organizations, you know, to be able to actually get all of these newspapers together. It doesn't happen by accident. You've got to do a lot of work, and it's taken us, it's pretty much taken us to this point this year. I think I just finished loading the last of the Grass Valley Unions last week. So the 13,000 newspapers, it takes a while to load them into a computer. So, and then if you want to try something out, it's funny, we were looking at home, we were looking at this last night. So what happened on this day in history? And this is actually, it's kind of a cool thing that you can do on Wikipedia about just what happened on this day in history. But what happened here in Nevada County? So you can go to the homepage of the archive, And it's got this little box, and you've got 4 different newspapers here, and so you can just pick a particular year to go straight through to today's newspaper from that year and see what was going on. And there's always something fun going on in one of the stories. Okay, so I quickly want to mention court cases, because this is an amazing part of the records that Searle's library holds. Is over 5,500 court cases, going from 1856 through to about 1880, as part of the legacy that the Searle's family of lawyers that have left us. So first of all, I want to thank our volunteers for scanning. We have scanned 295. Each one takes quite a long time, so don't look at the other part, guys. It might take us a little while. So in a year, we managed to do 295. Now, we've been scanning a lot of other things, but at this rate, it may take us a few years to finish off the court cases. But there's some fascinating stories in here. And I want to give you just a couple of quick examples, because it's about the history behind the scenes is kind of what's interesting here. So it was actually the first court case that we scanned. And sorry, Shelby, I'm going to pick on you, because so Shelby was one of our early volunteers, and we were both, neither of us had scanned any court cases before, and so we were sitting down like, okay, how do we work this out? And we picked it out, so it's case 1-1, and we're going like, oh, okay, well, it's a debt collection case. It's fairly humdrum, fairly routine. But then actually the last page out of the 15 or 20 pages was this one here. And it's an affidavit written and signed by Aaron Sargent, who was at the time editor of the Nevada Journal. And it was before he became a lawyer. And it's just him as the editor of the paper swearing that, yes, I put this ad that basically said, this guy's a useless bum and he owes this guy money, as an ad in my newspaper, and there it is, there's the ad. And so for those of you who don't know, Aaron Sargent was not long after this elected to Congress as our congressman. When he got to Washington, he promptly wrote the Pacific Railroad Act, which led to the Transcontinental Railroad being built. And then later, he was our U.S. senator. And in 1882, he, at the request of his wife and Susan B. Anthony, he wrote the words to what would become the 19th Amendment, which finally, 40 years after that, became granted women the right to vote. So, so I just like to think that there is the signature of, he's not technically a writer of the Constitution, but he's definitely a writer of the Bill of Rights, right? So I think that was just a fascinating find that, that first day when we were actually sitting down doing a court case, there is a piece of history right here. Okay, so a couple of other things. So this one I found, as Dakota and I find ourselves doing this all the time, we get sucked into a little vortex of researching something historical. And I remember seeing this picture, and this is actually, you can find this picture if you just Wikipedia, look up on Wikipedia. This is a picture of Broad Street, looking up Broad Street from about Pine Street. That's the New York Hotel on the right-hand side, and church at the top of the street, from 1856. And what's interesting is this actually may be before the Great Fire, which actually is an interesting thing. So all of the photos that we had are usually from 1857, which is actually after the fire. And you see a lot more brick buildings. So these are all the wooden buildings that burnt down in the fire of July 19th. So what's interesting about this is this was taken by a lady called Julia Ann Rudolph. Although at the time, she was known by her married name of Julia Ann Raymond. Now, this was really unusual because there were very few photographers in California, period, in 1856. But even more unusual to have a female photographer. It's actually amazing. So she's actually quite well renowned in photography circles as a Western pioneer, and for her skill creating daguerreotype photographs. And she ran a photo studio in Broad Street. Very few of her Nevada City pictures actually survive, although actually you may, I don't know if anybody's ever seen, there's an etching or an engraving of Eddie Matheson, the inventor of hydraulic mining. It's basically just a black and white lithograph of his. That was actually made from a photo that Julia took. And so there are some things that still survive. But so I was looking at this and then I realized, well, hold on, Julia Ann Raymond, that sounds familiar. Because one of the court cases we scanned was her divorce case. And so this is just a fascinating story about, the court case, just you can drop down to the bottom there, the evidence, the exhibits in the court testimony included 10 letters written between the couple, between Julia and her husband, Rudolph. And actually, it's really ironic. Her first husband, his name was Rudolph Raymond. She got divorced, and then her next husband was, I can't remember his first name, but his last name was Rudolph. So it's like, girl, you've got to get away from this name. But yeah, so the court case tells this amazing story about how they were married in New York in 1849 and had a young daughter, and then Rudolph Raymond, he set off for California to go seek his fortune in the gold rush, and she was left in New York with a young baby with no source of income, and so she actually taught herself how to take daguerreotype photographs, a very early technology for something that and so she started earning a living doing that, and so after several years, her husband pleaded her to come out to California. It's amazing out here. Of course, it's wonderful. It's California. What could go wrong? You've got to come out here. And so there's actually these love letters that basically talk about how wonderful it is and how she should come out. That's a very common thing. I think you may have seen that people wrote home to say, oh, it's wonderful, you need to come out. So eventually in 1855, she did come out to California when she got here, things, not maybe surprisingly, weren't quite as rosy as he had painted. And so he was down on his luck. He wasn't really working as a carpenter, and he carried on neglecting her even after she got out here. And then things went from bad to worse, and then finally in August of 1856, after he'd been abusive and cruel and violent, she finally filed for divorce. And so we got witness testimony in this scanned court case of witnesses saying that they saw bruises on her arms and witnessed him being violent and harsh to her. So all of this actually just brings to life this particular family story. But it's amazing the fact that all through this time, right, so August 1856, that was just after the fire, so it was just a few months before that she took that photo that we were just looking at. It's a kind of a cool story. Okay, and then so moving on quickly, because we're going to get to we're going to bring Dakota on. You can get rid of this boring speaker you've got now, because but there would be it wouldn't be a presentation from me unless it was at least one slide talking about something to do with ditches. Okay. So a hypothetical question for you. So if you're building a new deck, or you've got a contractor doing some work, and an injury happens on the work site, let's say your neighbor steps on something and gets injured. So who's liable in that case? Is it you or the contractor that you get to sue? Well, this is actually decided in California case law. Go back to February 1857, and there was a 200-acre reservoir up at Scott's Flat. And the dam had just been built by two carpenters, William Moore and Lemuel Foss. And they had just about finished building this dam, and the water had already risen up, the reservoir, the lake was all full. And that week, a series of 6 atmospheric rivers descended on California, and it rained constantly for 13 days. So the full reservoir hadn't been finished yet, and you can imagine, inches and inches and inches of rain. So the dam collapsed, and all of that water started rushing down Deer Creek, and it ended up washing away 8 buildings, including the Monumental Hotel, which was pretty much just at the bottom of Broad Street, actually got split in 2. It actually perfectly split in 2, and half of it lifted up and floated downstream, and the other half was left pristine and intact. It's kind of funny. And then also washed away the two bridges at the Broad Street and Nevada Street. Ironically, February of ~57, those bridges had just been finished being rebuilt after the fire by Moore and Foss. They were the bridge builders, so their bridges got washed out by the floods from their dam collapsing. Anyway, a lot of people were not happy about Amos Laird, who was the owner of the dam and owner of the reservoir, for all of the damage that it did. So there were about 7 or 8 different court cases suing him basically for damages. And a court case, this court case, Boswell and Hanson, found in favor of, found against Laird for $5,000 in damages. However, on appeal, the California Supreme Court found that, oh no, Laird wasn't responsible because he had not accepted the work from the contractor. And so that now today is a legal precedent in California that if you have not accepted the work of a contractor, they are liable for that. And that's called the accepted work doctrine. And so it all started right here in Nevada City, and we have this amazing court case that tells you all about it. And at this point, Dakota is going to show us more about what's going on inside the archive.
We'll be ready just in case the volume's loud.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Perfect. Just want to make sure I don't blow everyone's ears out. So as Dom explained, kind of the things that just scanning these court cases, you're able to find out. These were just a few of the examples. And I'm sure there's many other examples if you were to go through at home, which you're able to with this website. So here on this website, just to show a few examples, I'll just show my family, for example. You can either on the home page, just search there for the whole website, or for example, I'm going to go to yearbooks. Yearbooks, I can just click right there. And then I can type my name. Type my name, and it shows all the results, not only for my grandpa, but aunts, anyone else. If I click that in, within 3 clicks, I can see the pages that my grandpa's on in the yearbook. I can click on right there, scroll down, and there's my grandpa right there, with the name highlighted. So with that, it doesn't only just show that. You see every page that his name is mentioned. So if I wanted to flip through and see the next page he's mentioned on. This is a senior prophecy where it talked about all the seniors and what their ambitions were. You can look into my grandpa's ambition was a taxi driver.
To become a taxi driver?
Unfortunately for him, he did not become a taxi driver. He was a logger his entire life and stayed in the forest. I'm sure he put taxi driver because he started at 13 years old in the woods and wanted to get to San Francisco, but that did not happen. And so that is just one example where you can continue to flip through and just see some of the more mentions where he shows up, and every single one. Well, and actually this one isn't my grandpa, this is my Aunt Florence. But every single mention of the last name will be found in those pages. Another example I would like to show you is this website's kind of opened up opportunities to work with the community. There's a lot of family photos out there that are precious to family and will be passed down for generations. We absolutely agree with that and would want you to pass them down for generations to come. But we would also love to share and preserve your family history as well. For one of those examples is using Roy Tremorow. He is the great-grandson of Charles E. Clinch, which is a very prominent family and many intertwining family members. He has brought to me 5 tubs of family photos and scrapbooks from maybe his grandfather that was started the Manuel Episcopal Church, or his grandfather Charles Clinch that was one of the owners of North Star, or starting Clinch Mercantile with William Horn, or his father owned Alpha Hardware. There's numerous things with just this one family, and that these are precious materials to that family. So with that, I can click into just that family collection, and you can explore and kind of get an insight of that whole life. Whether it's opening up, this is the old book from the Clinch Mercantile, where all these pages talk about the workings of Clinch Mercantile. I go back, you can go to family scrapbooks, mentions, Like I said, this was a prominent family, so you can even find invitations from President Taft for their family to go to the White House. You can see correspondence with Governor Warren, because they were close family friends, and anytime he came to town, stayed at their house. Also, there's a letter in there when Governor Warren became Supreme Court Justice of the United States. He sent a letter back to the family and noting, sorry it's been so long to get back to you. As you know, I've been kind of busy. But not only scrapbooks, but also these amazing photos that come from this family. One example, let's see if it loads in. This is going to be on Mill Street. Now these are precious family photos, and he wants to keep these in the family, but now we get to enjoy them as well with everyone else. Just looking at the detail of these photos, and just seeing the team of horses on Mill Street doing construction in about the 1880s. I absolutely encourage everyone to look through these photos because you can be looking through them for days. This is another photo of some of his family out at Shebley's Pond with the wood-burning narrow gauge going in the background. Shebley's Pond was in Chicago Park. And as you see on this photo, it's also named Clinch because his great uncle was the Clinch photographer. That's why a lot of these quality of these photos are so amazing. But you're able to zoom in and see Willis Clinch right there. Also, with these, it's fun to be able to explore and get to learn this family and see the events that they did. This is also at Shebley's Pond. Which this picture, when I look at it, I'm kind of confused how they put so many people on one boat. Because all it takes is one person to move and everyone's in the water. Funny thing about this, the back of this is it's written, if I were to name everyone, it would be a who's who of Grass Valley in 1880. And this is just a small example of how many photos, where I can just scroll through and just to give you an example. Actually, this photo here is one that we really don't have any pictures of this man. This man is William Hague, the son of James Hague, and this was taken about a month before he passed away in France in World War I. These are to be known as one of the only images out there of William Hague before he died. Now, I was explaining, you could just spend hours looking through these photos and you become a temporary family member, in my opinion. And that was just one example of this website, but also we've been able to branch out on this website. We can showcase videos, which, as Dom explained, we have recently acquired a quite extensive collection of videos that we are working on getting digitized. It takes some time with some of the certain formats, but we do have some, and we will show you some teasers of some of the videos that we've gotten digitized so far. It's about a 15-minute video I put together of multiple clips from about 20 to 30 videos.
Could I ask the main lights to get turned off? And actually, just before we get into that, I'd also like to say to thank Brett from Gold Star Solution, the Photo Solutions. He actually is the man that was responsible for actually digitizing a lot of the film reels and things that you're going to see tonight. So thank you, Brett. And he also does digitizing for families as well. So let us know if you need his contact information. Take it away, Dakota.
And so before we get started, like I said, it's going to be a bunch of clips. With old films, it kind of gets around a lot. A lot of information is going to be pushed to you from a lot of different clips. I'm going to try to narrate it and walk you along as what you're seeing. But like I said, this is a teaser, and you'll be able to find these full films once we get them up on the website. So this, some of you might have been around to experience Highway 49 being built. This will show different examples, and here we go. So as we're looking, it's going to flip from shot to shot, just kind of showing some of the construction going on 49 and seeing how extensive that project was. You can see in the background just some of more of the shack-type houses that were there, just right up next to it. And then looking down the hill and see how open it used to be. I believe this is looking down toward Brunswick.
What year?
This is 1960s. I'm not sure the exact year for this one because it was done in sections. So here we can get more into Nevada City. What you're going to see here in just a couple seconds is odd assay office in the backside of it. There was quite the venture where they had to raise the funds to save that building because it was originally torn out. And you can see how it's just being held up with some, looks like some 2x12s. And here we go driving down, I believe this is Sacramento Street, driving down the hill. Now for me, I could just watch these kind of things all day, just to see. So you see the Celio barn in front of you.
So this is driving down towards the plaza, down towards Holden Street. There's Holden Street again.
The stone house to your right, coming up on the intersection. Unfortunately, this will cut right here, and you don't get to see up downtown, and it will cut to Main Street.
Cross Valley.
So, pretty similar, not too many changes. Less stop signs, more parking on the side. But really, the buildings while the owners may have changed, and the signs may have changed, still pretty similar. Quick shot of Mill Street. And as I said, these were restricted just to what we get on these films, so if we want more, it's just that much what we get. So here we have Broad Street, getting set up for an old parade. Looks like it was more free reign to let people walk through the cars as they were driving down. So like there's issues with that in today's. And you can see the Alpha hardware. I love just to look at these and see the community together many years ago. And here we will go back even farther for an older parade. I'm not too sure about the year about this yet. I have to try to match it up with the floats. Wow. And this looks to be in Grass Valley. Marching band. So now as we go back even farther in time, you can see an example of some explosives being set. And when we get these videos, we really don't know what to expect. Some of them have a title which we think is going to be great, and some of them doesn't have a title, and those turn out to be the best ones.
Could they have sound at all?
No. These older ones do not have sound, and there's the explosion. Looks like they were clearing out the side of the road. This one is very interesting to me, because this, many of you know it as Nevada County Fairgrounds now. This was in 1936 while it was Watt Park. The interesting thing about this, doing the research, I was excited just to see the rodeo film, but this was the first Nevada County rodeo. And actually doing this, they did a fundraiser all year selling tickets for this rodeo, and this is what got Watt Park out of foreclosure. So without this rodeo, there could be no fairgrounds. It's interesting looking up more of the newspapers on this. You can see where the bulls came from India, the Braham bulls. And this rodeo was actually done on the baseball diamond out at Watt Park. Looking through the newspapers, I noticed there was at least 5 people at this that are in the Rodeo Hall of Fame now. It was quite the significant event. There's the baseball diamond you can see. we've got looks like a distinguished gentleman checking out some construction. Some of you might be able to kind of notice some of the features of this construction going on. I'll give you a couple seconds before I let you know what it actually is.
Any guesses yet?
So this is actually Errol McBoyle's stables of the barns being built at Loma Rica Ranch. So 1935. And that distinguished gentleman you saw was Errol McBoyle supervising himself.
That's in Loma Rica, so that's out in Loma Rica.
There's you got the narrow gauge driving by. Get a quick shot of that during work. Inside some of the stables and just seeing the work crew. Interesting seeing some of that machinery work from 90 years ago now. There it starts to come to a picture more. And with Errol McBoyle, this is his old plane. This was the, I believe it was the Lockheed 10A Electra, which he flew all the gold to the San Francisco Mint on.
We have the drop.
Over at the Mining Museum, as Randy shared, you can find the prop from this plane. That is his wife. I believe her name was Glendolyn. And there's not many photos of her out there. This is one of the only chances you see of her. I saw her obituary where it talked mostly about all her jewelry. From pearls to gems and lots of gold jewelry. So here's at the airport, which we know is the Nevada County Airport, when it was McBoyle's private airport. So we fast forward some of the construction work in the snow. Something we can't get away from no matter how far it gets in time. And seeing this, I'm thankful for the snow plows and machinery we have nowadays.
Do you have any clue what year this is?
1935. The construction started in 1934, which is why I say about 1935. And as we're just watching this film, I just want to mention that as it's a silent film, we hope to, as we get these films going, start to work with some of the Sierra College students and getting some sound added to these films to liven it up a little bit. Chain's not working too good. Here with the snow, you can also have flooding, which is what you see here with Idaho Maryland Mine in the background. This is the Deer Creek flooding by Idaho Maryland Mine. Wolf Creek.
Was this around the same year,
Yeah,
1935?
yes, this is all from the same film. You can see some of the agriculture, and the ranching. And this, I don't know if you can see it too well, but that is a little foal of one of the horses being born out of the stables. I don't know if many of you know about the horses that they had out there, but they had some significant horses, with the most famous being Nor, after Nor was retired. In 1950, Nor beat the Triple Crown winner 4 out of 5 times that year, and was the first horse in history to beat 2 Triple Crown winners. It was also owned by the same owner as Seabiscuit. That's looking out where a lot of the housing is being built out there now. That was Errol McBoyle himself. Now, as we go back a little bit farther, this, I believe, is Commercial Street in Nevada City. Now we're looking at Idaho Maryland Mine. And you'll get a glimpse of some of the workings at Idaho Maryland Mine. I'm not sure of the exact year on this, but I'm assuming this is about 1930s. You got the ore car coming up. Up in the pager to move it on. Now, I just love these films because it tells so much more than just a singular photo. We can actually see the workings and how they operated. This is Arthur Foote.
He was a pretty old guy.
Yeah.
He was young at one time. I believe we're over at, looking at the North Star now. This is an example showing the difference between hand drilling and the difference between the new drills.
Look how big that thing is.
Oh yeah. It made a huge difference though. I believe it went from 30 hits a minute to 1,600 hits a minute. Nah, they had no safety standards. This is coming up out of the Empire Mine with a lot of men.
Oh, look at him.
And this is a result of the pager once they can be smelted. It's a lot of gold right there. Plus the extra wash off. Now this top part that they hit out, the gold will go to the bottom for the weight, and that I believe is what they call a button. So they'll kick off that top golden button. So now here, some of you may know this, it's a familiar barn, Lyman Gilmore. This was his hangar out there at Lyman Gilmore before it was the school that we know today. The first commercial airport in the world. Now, I don't know if too many of you know about the Lyman Gilmore history, but he has this claim to fame to have flown before the Wright brothers. He submitted a patent for his plane in 1898, which was denied because they said it was too heavy to fly.
Aren't they the ones that are known for making the first drones?
So here, this was his first robot plane, which he had this design in 1920. 100 years before what we know of drones today. He said he had an electromagnetic control that could even fly that for 1.5 miles, showing this is his patents that he claimed on it. So whether people have stories about maybe he was a crazy man, he predicted drones 100 years before they came out.
Oh, he was a pretty hairy guy.
Well, they got too many haircuts. One of our former board members who passed away last year, Rita, she remembered personal experiences with Lyman Gilmore, and she always told the story of walking down the street with her mom, and they would have to cross to the other side, and they would still smell him from the other side.
He never pays. That's true.
This is them showing off some of their blueprints. I believe the story goes in 1935, when the hangar burnt down everything inside it. But we've also heard rumors of things possibly still out there. But no matter his scent or anything, you had to be a little crazy to go up in the air back then. Get the dogs out there. That is his brother. That is his brother Charles, which he's constantly kind of looked over, but he was always with him, helping him out. And that is the end of that film.
Hold on 1 second. So thank you, Dakota, for putting that together, that video. It's not only so I just want to tell you a few other small things about what's going on in the archive, and then we'll maybe also get some questions. So we have a lot of maps in the archive. So there's about over 17,500 maps. And this actually is a huge credit to the volunteers at Searle's Library over the past couple of decades, because over 10,000 of those were actually hand-described described and all of the data entered about each of those. So that's part of the reason why now they provide an amazing research tool, because you can search the index, but also can pull up the map. And this is actually a wonderful tool for researching properties here locally in the area. So we've also added some recent high-resolution scans of some of the old significant maps. And these are really good because you can just zoom in as far as you want to see all of the little details. And this really gets us to the point where anywhere in Nevada County, you can actually, in the archive, you can find where your property was, let's say 100 years ago, and then use that as a starting point for, okay, who owned this property? What was the story of that? And actually do some more research. And so what we have is, obviously you can go in and you can search just in maps for, you can't just go ahead and put your address in, because modern addresses were only formalized by the county relatively recently, in comparison to our 170 years of history. So you have to use some other mechanisms of actually just either looking on a map and seeing where it is. And actually most of the maps are all tracked by former owner name. And so if you live in the city limits, which have changed over time, so it gets a little bit more complicated. But if you live in the city limits of Nevada City or Grass Valley, then we can actually, just in the archive, you can, just by finding the block and lot number, which is the way that they were defined from maps that were drawn up in the 1870s, 1869 and 1870s, you can see a complete list of the owners of your particular property. And that is all thanks to the hand data entry done by the Searle's volunteers. So that's just an amazing thing to be able to pull that up. But also, for those of us that don't live inside the city limits, there's plenty of other maps to be able to go and look around and see, okay, so who owned this property and how can I go about researching that? And we also have searchable a number of different things, particularly 150 years of vital records, which for everybody is first marriages and deaths. And also all of the land transaction sales. So every property sale between 1856 and 1922, we now have searchable. And so that's part of what's called the KITS index. And that actually allows you to be able to find the land deed, or actually who bought or sold your property anywhere in Nevada County. So that's so there's in the archive, there's a view search guide on the homepage, and it'll actually step you through step by step about how to go look for that. Now, if you want some help, of course, just let us know, and we're happy to help you look for something. So it wouldn't be technology unless we threw in a little bit of artificial intelligence. So we've been doing that, and I wanted to share with you just something that's a little bit more fun. Is it a serious research tool at this point? You can decide for yourself. Some of it's useful, some of it's a little bit more fun. But one of the things here is being able to look for similar images. So if you're looking for, well, I like this photo, but are there any other photos like this, or from a different angle, or from, or what happens if, well, this photo, it actually doesn't have all of the details about what that photo is. So let me look for a similar photo to see if it has a different description. So here is a classic photo of Narragansett Railroad going across Bear River. And so if we use AI on the site, so you can literally, any photo in the site, you can click on this, and on the right-hand side it says View Similar Images. You just click on that button, and it'll take you to a page that looks like this. And so there you go, you can see that trestle bridge. So these are actually all of the photos of not just that trestle bridge, but actually other similar looking trestles as well. And so it'll give you a little similarity percentage, basically so how accurate we think it is. So you can see there's quite a few pictures of exactly the same bridge that you can look at. Now, so that's kind of interesting. It works really well on buildings and airplanes and structures and things like that. But if you try to look for, oh, well, I've got this portrait of somebody, and I want to look at a similar a photo of the same person. If it's just a similar image, then the AI will say, oh, sure, okay, I've got lots of other portraits. We can look at those. So you want to see, an older gentleman with a moustache. Oh, we can do older gentlemen with moustaches all day long. What's more important is, what about the actual person's face? And so what we've added to here is actually similar face recognition. So it's not magically finding who the person's name is, but what it's doing is it's searching for faces that look like the face you're interested in. So on any photo in the archive, there are, across the whole archive, so there's 46,000 photos, in there are 65,000 faces. And actually those include, so some of the group photos have 10, 20, 100 faces on it. And so here, it basically draws a little box around the face, and then you click on the face, and it'll search for other people, other photos that have that face. And so, so in this example, so this particular glass plate photo, it wasn't known at the time exactly who that gentleman was, but using the similar faces, we actually get a selection of different faces, and the most similar one, right here, correctly identifies the same gentleman as Tom Brinjon, with 88% similarity. Now, it's interesting because it also looks quite similar to Niall Searles. And also, whoever this fellow is that looks a little bit like Teddy Roosevelt. But so part of this is all of the modern AI models are based on color modern photos. So literally it's trawling Instagram and Facebook, comparing photos. So when you then compare that with all of our photos, that nearly all of them are more than 100 years old, it's not quite as accurate. But these things will improve. So the faces, it's not magically going to find the picture of your aunt, I'm afraid. But however, it's kind of fun to look through. Just basically like, okay, are there any other photos of this person with this particular face? Okay, so what we'd love to do is also ask you for your help. And Dakota, feel free to jump in here. One of the things is, as Dakota mentioned a little bit earlier on, is about getting donations to be able to put things in the archive. And so obviously we would be honored to receive any donations of historical material that we'd love to help preserve for future generations. But we also very much understand about how family treasures should stay with families, and that's really important. So we're very happy if you don't mind loaning us some of the articles or items, we will scan them and then give them back, and then basically they will be safe in the archive for future generations. And we've had some good examples actually where somebody was actually donated some photos to us, and we got them scanned. And the reason she donated the photos was like, I talked to the grandkids, they weren't interested in any of this stuff. It's like, here you go, we want them to be safe, we don't want to throw them away. And then, funnily enough, after we scanned them and she shared the link of them online, suddenly the grandkids were interested. Because that's the way it works.
And just to jump in on that as well, when I was talking about the Roy Terminal photos, he was asking me, oh, can you get them up online? My nieces and nephews are coming to town. And so we were able to get them up online for him, which I still have to add another 500 photos with another 10 scrapbooks. But they were able to just sit around the computer and enjoy the family photos. Whereas these have normally just been sitting in his tubs and his shed that he built outside, especially for that, not being able to enjoy it. Now his grandkids and everyone can enjoy them, nephews, nieces, just with one link and just explore their family history.
So if you have anything old and that you'd like to either donate or just loan to us, we would love to hear from you. On the homepage, there is a contribute to the archive button, and you can fill out a form, or just feel free to contact us through the contact us on the website, and we'd love to hear from you. Okay, so just to wrap up here, I wanted to tell you a little bit more about what we're planning for the future, because obviously, unfortunately, Dakota and I are not going to be able to say, oh, we're done, that's right, we can go home now. It's been strange, but for both Dakota and I, this has turned into a full-time job for both of us. Maybe a little obsession, I don't know, something like that, but it's so fascinating, it's difficult not to get drawn in. So, okay, so what are we planning? Well, we're already talking to a number of other organizations to get them involved because this is about a community and other groups that we want to work with. And so if you've got contacts at other historical-oriented organizations locally that might be interested in getting involved, we'd love to hear from them. But actually, one of the most important things actually at this point is now we'd like to become, as you can tell, this is now it's a thing. And we'd like to become a little bit more official by working both with the county and also with the cities of Nevada City and Grass Valley to really help encourage our local government officials to take a deeper interest in our local history and really to help institutionalize the celebration and preservation of our history in our local government. And I think that's something that's really important. We've started working with the City of Nevada City to scan some of the old documents that they had, frankly, sitting in the basement. And that has been a wonderful project, that things are now online. And we'd love to do lots more things like that. And so we look forward to working more closely with both the cities and with Nevada County to formalize some of that and get more involved. And then finally, we have some other plans afoot. One of the things that we've realized is that we've made incredible strides in the last year with commercial grade, i.e. for us regular folk, scanning equipment. And our volunteers, we've been able to use these things in a very effective fashion. However, due to some of the specialized nature of a lot of the materials we've got, we need to get into buying some professional grade scanning equipment to do the job properly. And part of this is we're already scanning slides, negatives. That's great, 35mm ones. So the problem is that 3/4 of our negatives are not 35mm. They're 4 times the size of that in an old format because they're really old negatives. And so we need specialized equipment to do that. We have about 15,000 maps. And I know Richard's just waiting for the map scanner. I know it's like we have a volunteer ready to step in to start scanning maps. The map scanner would be a fantastic project to help to be able to actually search all of the different properties around the county and actually see what was being mapped out and what was being surveyed over the last over many decades. And then finally, we have many very large documents and very large format ledgers, in particular our tax assessment books. And so to properly scan these as a preservation quality, we actually need, it's an expensive, large overhead format the document scanner. And, and one of the things here is that, we think about, well, okay, this is a super fun digitization project, that's great. But I think we do need to realize that we live in the middle of wildfire country. And so, you look at towns like Paradise or Altadena, And it's not a question of, oh, well, that could never happen here. We know it absolutely could happen here. Now, I have to say, we were being very fortunate that particularly the History Center just next door here was very carefully chosen by Pat and Dan and many other of the team here because it has thick concrete walls and a metal roof, and it has 2 fire stations within 500 feet. That is a really good thing. But having said that, if a wildfire came through, it wouldn't matter. And so our goal here is that in 100 years' time, we would like to have these records still exactly the way they are. But if for some reason something happened, all of these records would be gone. There'd be nothing. Whereas these projects here, what we're trying to do is preserve these for future generations so that in the worst case scenario, these are preserved digitally. But having said that also, we want to make things more accessible. And I think what you've seen tonight is that the archive it's about celebrating Nevada County's history by allowing people to actually be able to access it online. So we'd love to get your support through donations. Volunteering is a wonderful thing, but we also now hit the point where we actually need to take a look at some of this professional grade equipment. So any help would be much appreciated. All right, so with that, I want to thank you very much, and I think we've got time perhaps for a few questions. Lights, yes please, lights.
Light switches on top.
There we go. Thank you, Jeffrey. Gary.
So the more recent unions, what's the status on that? Because with the union corporation, will they let you have those?
So a very good question. The question was about the most recent Grass Valley unions. So we have up until 1922. If you want to go look at them today, newspapers.com commercially paid for the microfilms that exist of those to be digitized, and that's why they're available on newspapers.com with subscription. So for us to, we have the microfilms. Having said that, we don't have the budget to be able to digitize the rest of those. And so one of the things is working with Laura Papani. She actually got the grants to make the microfilms available that we already have, the 16,000 issues that we've got. So this is going to be a future project for us to get that last third of the Grass Valley unions. The last third of all of our newspapers is basically the last 100 years of the Grass Valley Union. And it's going to cost money to pretty much for us or collectively the community to pay for the digitization of those microphones. So fingers crossed. We're going to work on it. Good question. Thank you, Gary. Other questions? Steve.
So can you do a search on handwritten documents like the court cases?
Great question. Can you do a search on handwritten documents like the court cases? And the answer is not really, not yet. And so the built into the archive is some technology called OCR, optical character recognition, which some of you may use. So anything that's printed or typed, the computer system will absorb it all, change it into text, and make it searchable. And if you actually look at a lot of the maps we've got, where it's hand drawn, but it's kind of printed, just in printed letters. The OCR, the computer technology, actually picks up a lot of that. But all of the cursive, so the OCR we're using is actually some of the latest AI technology. It's AI that's changing the images into text. So it's starting to do cursive and handwriting, and we can see in a few number of years from now, most cursive, particularly modern cursive, is going to be. You can already write on your phone, and it knows what you're saying. So to get to the old cursive, so cursive from 170 years ago, so Brian, how is that cursive on some of the court cases you've been doing?
It's impossible.
Yeah, so the older cursive, some of the clerks had amazing boilerplate cursive, and others didn't. Other questions? Are we interested in photos of historical places? Absolutely. I mean, so our focus here is anything that's really local, Nevada County. Obviously, we're kind of shoehorning in Downeyville as well. But I mean, part of this is about being able to share any kind of photo of our history here in Nevada County. So we'd love to. So absolutely. So part of the question is even pictures taken recently. So here's something. When did history start? History started yesterday. And I got to tell you, finding some pieces of history from yesterday are an awful lot easier than finding pieces of history from 170 years ago. So absolutely, and this is part of something that's very important. So Pat and her team of volunteers are looking at today's union, or actually probably maybe it's yesterday's union, I'm not sure, Pat. But actually looking at yesterday's union and actually creating historical clippings books from that, because history has already started. And so we mustn't forget the more recent history as well about collecting that too. Other questions? Chuck.
The facility in Downeyville, the courthouse, and their record system, have they started the process at all, to your knowledge, of their records for their...
Good question. Okay, so the question actually perhaps for Dawn, if you don't mind answering it. Has the Downeyville courthouse started digitizing any of the records in Downeyville?
I don't believe that the county has, but there is a gentleman that lives in Truckee, Rick Solinsky, and he's spent many hours. He's got tens of thousands of...
He has 10,000 photos, 10,000 images of Downeyville newspapers.
And he has not totally digitized, but he's taken pictures of most of the old Mountain Messengers that they have stored there. The county's not doing it, but he hasn't put in thousands of hours. He warned me it was addictive when you start doing it. And it is addictive, but it's also like being there, living it, when you start reading this stuff. Jump aboard, it's fun.
Thank you, Don. Yeah, so again, volunteer efforts, right? This is how we've got to try and, volunteer efforts got to turn into something that we can help get our county officials to do more. Any other questions? Alrighty, Dan.
I think you'd agree that what we've seen tonight is truly remarkable. The Searles Library has been in existence for several decades, and most of the groundwork was performed there at the Searles, ongoing today, lots of volunteer time. But what's really remarkable is what you've seen tonight has occurred in about a year's time. Remember, we discussed this at a board meeting a year ago last spring, and most everything you've seen here in terms of digitalization is happening because of Dakota and Dawn in about a year. So, pretty outstanding. Let's give them a round of applause.